Good morning and welcome back to the channel, and in this video I'm going to have my first go with this thing, and this is the Leatherman Free P4. Now, when these came out I quite liked the look of them, but seeing as I couldn't actually physically handle one, I never bought one. Well, I've been watching Alone, and Clayton, I think his name's Clayton, call him Clay from Alone, took one of these exact same tool out with him for his survival experience, and he did a video on it on his YouTube channel, and I watched with great interest. Obviously I fancied one. Well, I sent him a message on YouTube, I commented, and I asked him, if you did it again, would you take the same Muiltitool? And fair play to him, he got back and he said to me, yes, definitely, it performed brilliantly. He was very impressed with it. Well, yesterday my wife and myself went out for lunch, and after lunch we went round the shops, and I actually seen this in the window of a tobacconist. Guy had a couple of knives there, some Swiss Army knives, some Opinels and some Leathermans, and this was there. Had a look at it and bought it. Let's take a look. Wood saw, sharp back spine, always a good thing. I'm finding a little bit fiddly with the locks because I'm not used to them. A serrated tanto blade, which is a bit different. A slightly dropped spear point blade, and to me this looks like it's a hollow grind, so pretty good slicer. There's a little bit of play there, but well, what can you expect? And this was one thing I really liked about this, a substantial scissors. I am a fan of a scissors on a tool, and the ones that come on the Leatherman Charge, which is my preferred Muiltitool, and I've got two of them, is a little bit on the small side. It's okay for toenails and cutting fishing line and thin cord, but I do like something a bit more robust. The Leatherman Surge, which I've had a couple of them, they've got a nice robust one. The only thing, the Surge weighs a ton. It's a big old lump of a thing, and every one I've had I've just decided I don't want to keep it, so they've gone. Yeah, so I'm impressed with that. We have a large screwdriver and a Phillips. The Phillips looks quite large to me. Oh yeah, and we got a bottle opener. So I'll be taking this to work and doing screwdrivery things with it, seeing how good they work. We've got a file. It's only small, but I'd rather have a small file than no file at all. Got a medium-sized screwdriver. We've got an awl, although it's quite a flat awl, but it's got a sharp edge, so we'll be trying that out. And we got a tin opener. It's a bit of a funny shaped tin opener. We'll try that out at home. And then why this is called the Free is basically because as soon as you unlock it, it's quite free. Magnets holding it together, replaceable wire cutters, and thank goodness there's no cutout in there. I had a charge with the cutout there, and I knew for a fact I would snap that in work, so I sold that charge and I bought an older model. Pocket clip, no lanyard hole on it, but there's no problem, because if you wanted a lanyard you could just stick it through there. So that's the tool. Well, I'm going to light my fire now, and what I decided to do today for a bit of a change, and so I can use this thing, my dog ends I've got left from my star fire. I'm going to stand them up. I'm going to take a bit of wire. I'm going to twist it round and I'm going to light the fire on top. So making a bit of a Swedish fire torch thing with rounds. Bit of a change, see how it works. I got my kettle bag, and at the bottom of my kettle bag I have quite a bit of paracord, just some loose bits so I can use it for whatever I need, and I also carry some wire. I don't use wire very often, but it's here if I need it. I got plenty of wood here, which I split up a couple of days back, and I'll probably use that and some twigs. I'll make a little feather stick, see how the blade works out. Crack on then. Not too shabby. Well, I think that's enough. Everything's bone dry. Famous last words. I'll use the back of the saw now with the ferro rod. new faithful, if you watched the previous video, you know what I'm on about. Quite a bit of flex in this saw when I'm giving it a bit of pressure on the strike. There's quite a bit of flex in it. Well, that worked okay. Shame the breeze is coming straight at me again. Didn't have to use a lot of material though, that's something. And hopefully now the dog ends, the blackened ends will catch pretty easily. And I'll only need to add some twigs onto it all morning. As soon as I turned the camera off to put the kettle on, quite a few sticks fell off. So it is a little bit tippy at the start. It's lit, so there was no problem. It was only about 5 or 6 fell off, but yeah, it was a little bit tippy. Well, the kettle's on and heat is right underneath it now, so that shouldn't take long to boil. Whether it's something I would do if I didn't want to use my Leatherman pliers is another thing altogether. I just wanted to use the pliers. I've added a few twigs, just keep the flames up, get my kettle boiled. And what I'll do is, as soon as my kettle's boiled, I'll leave it. I won't add anything onto it, and I'll see if it actually burns. As you all know, flames like to go up, but I have made several upside down fires in my time, which did work. In theory, this is an upside down fire. It's sort of a Swedish torch upside down fire, bastard child. Something like that. Yeah, so I won't add any twigs to it, and we'll see how it goes. We'll see if it actually burns, or perhaps it just doesn't want to burn. Who knows? If it does work, then it could be a good winter technique or wet ground technique. You know, you find your fallen tree, cut it into 3 equal sections. You could paracord it up, or you know, if there's snow on the ground, you wouldn't have to do anything really. You just shove them in the ground, although I think a bit of paracord would help. Light the fire on top, let it burn down. May work, may not work. Works with a Swedish torch, although you know, you have got to cut some slits in it. We'll see. Well, it's boiling now, so I'm going to have a cup of tea. Sorry for rambling on, it's just my thoughts. Now, as I said in the last video, this is not particularly good fat wood, but it's a little test for the saw. Honest opinion, it's too short. It's very short, and it doesn't work as well as a Victorinox. No way, not a chance. The Ranger wood, or one of the larger Victorinox lockers, and I've got a few of them, they would have flown through that. That took a while, so that's a bit disappointing. No, it's definitely not as sharp as a Victorinox. I don't think it's as good as the charge saw either. Shame, but there we are. Always carry a big saw anyway. It's only an emergency. Did it just slowly. I think I'll try this tank door blade out. You see, this is a bit rotten. That's better. Yes, I know some of you are now thinking, oh, why is he battening with that? It's not much. Oh, well, that wasn't good. I've broken it. Broken the lock. I can see it inside. Well, that wasn't very robust, was it? Very disappointing. Well, that's going back. What a shame. Yes, I know you're thinking I'm an idiot, but it should have been able to take that. That was just a gentle tap. Oh well, that's the end of that. Well, as you can see, I've put the fire as it should normally be. Well, we'll try it next time. Very disappointed with that. I'll tell you one thing now. On the charge or the surge, that would not have happened. Not a chance. That little nubbin in there broke. So that's, as far as I'm concerned, that's a design failure. I didn't exactly hammer 7 bells out of it. It had a gentle tap. So I'm disappointed with that, and I'll have to go back to Leatherman for the blade to be replaced. Such is life. At least I know its limitations, and that's why we do tests. Hoping to get my hands on a Swiss Tool X from Victorinox at some point in the near future as well. So we'll take a look at that and all. Well, after that disappointment, that's the end of today's test on the Leatherman. I just wanted to show you something. I've been working on this survival tin kit, and looking through all my gear, and I decided to make just a little kit up for everyday woods use. I bought this little pouch off Brian Trubshaw, Journeyman Handicrafts, or Handcrafts, whichever the case may be. I thought I'd just fill it with some stuff that I'll use in the woods on a daily basis. Let's have a look what's in here. First off, I've got a spool with some bank line on it, and that's 2 different grades. That's the soft stuff and the thicker, stiffer stuff. and that's on a spoolet spool. And I seen these spoolet spools on Instagram, so I ordered the pack with 2 small ones and 1 big one. The big one is this one, and then about 2 weeks later the guy brought out a fishing spool, which is a slightly different shape, about the same size as that, so I bought that as well. Got to help people out, and I quite like them. Nice little gadget. Spoolet spool with cordage. I've got a brand new jet lighter in here with some 1-inch duct tape, which, as you may know, I tend to use as a band-aid just in case I get a cut. That's good stuff, and it'll keep it together a lot better than an elastoplast. You know I like jet lighters. I've got some man-made tinders. I like these, they're good. A whole one burns for 4 minutes. They light easy with a spark. Good bit of kit. Bath bushcraft store. I'm sure that in the rest of the world they sell them under a different name, but I know that came from the Bath bushcraft store in the UK. Ferro rod, which is the Exotac. I'm just looking for a ferro rod and I thought, well, that's a nice one, I'll put that in. I've got one of my best friends, the Muiltitool, with the modification on it. And that's all that is basically, is I've shined up and made a very sharp 90 on one side, keep the other side as a striker light. I've got an eraser block, cleaning my blade, and I got a piece of Stacky Blue polishing paste to use with my little strop I keep the back of my bag. So, thought I'd share that with you, seeing as the review was being cut short. I think it's time for another cup of tea. Now that I've had my second cup of tea and gathered my thoughts, I thought I'm going to carry on with testing this thing. Thing is, now that I've found one failure, I may find another. What I'm going to do a bit of stake pointing on this piece of wood, which is seasoned. So I'll give it a bit of welly, as they say, and see if there's any problems with the lock in normal use. I'll drill a hole through it as well with the awl, see how well that works. It's not actually seasoned, it's still a bit green. Now, one thing I'm finding, when I'm doing this power cut, my finger is actually hitting that lock, so there's a good chance I could actually unlock this by doing this, and if I go further down then I'm losing control. I need to put my finger there. Try and bear in mind to keep it back a bit. I am finding a bit of play with this blade. It's got a very rounded back to it, which is fine for carving. I don't need it to light my ferro rod or anything, because the back of the saw works fine for that. I'd have probably not taken so much of a chamfer, because there's not a lot of purchase with them. But it cuts well. I like the size of this blade as well. It's not too big, so you're not going to lever too much with it. I do like the blade One thing I did notice, now as I said earlier, I've used a charge every day in work for 16 years now, so my charges get a lot of use. Pliers mainly, screwdrivers quite a bit, saw very little, regular blade not so much, serrated blade a lot, and I really like the charge. And the first one I had, it stiffened up and I couldn't open it up. It just, over time, well, one day I went to use it and I couldn't open it, so I sent that back and they sent me a brand new one, and I used that for years. And then a few months back, last year, I went to cut a reasonably soft nail down with the pliers, and I must be stronger than the actual pliers, because I bent the internal workings, and what happened then, the jaws didn't actually close. There was about a mil gap, so I tend to pull a lot of staples out of stairs and things in work, and it just wouldn't do it. So that went back. They sent me a new one, but they sent me the newer model with the pliers with the other little bit cut out in them, and I did not like that idea. I knew that was going to break with the use I gave it in work, so I sold that to a friend, and I bought the older model back on a trade post, but it was brand new. It had hardly been used, so I'm using that now, and I do love my charge. I've also got an orange handled charge, which has seen some use in the woods, but haven't taken it to work. But that one's fine. There's nothing wrong with that one. Yeah, but I do like the shape of that blade, and the hollow grind cuts really nice. See, there's a little bit of play in it, and I don't like where that lock is. Right, I'm going to do a little bit more carving. I think I'll carve 2 curves in there, and then I'll use the awl to put a hole through it. Now if I want to do one of these notches and use a saw and come in that way to get out, it's a lot quicker, but by doing that you're reducing the strength. Now that's still pretty strong. If I did it the other way with the saw, it would weaken it, because you're leaving quite a bit of material on doing it that way. Right, let's try this awl. And when I first saw this awl, I thought it was a screwdriver, because it really looks like a screwdriver. It's working pretty well. Yeah. I like the awl. The awl works well. So that's one plus against the charge, because there's no awl on the charge. And an older wave I had, I actually turned the large screwdriver into an awl, and I didn't do a very good job of it. So that's why I didn't bother doing it on one of my charges. I left it. But yeah, as a woods tool, I think an awl is a big plus. So I'm not liking this thing. I do like it. I just think that the position of the lock and the fact that it broke on not a lot of battening, let's face it, it wasn't much. And I know some of you are going to call me an idiot, but it's good to know a tool's limitations. Another thing I didn't particularly like about this, when I use my charge, when you're doing it one-handed and you're right-handed, you open the blade, you turn it around, you open the blade, and on this one you've got the saw. I would prefer to have serrated blade so I can open it one-handed with my right hand. Unfortunately, to open this one, the serrated blade, which is broken, I can't do it one-handed. It's a bit fiddly. So that's one design flaw. I personally don't like. If you're going to use a saw, let's face it, you're not going to use a saw. Need the feature of one-handed opening on a saw, but on both blades I think you do. So there's a few pluses and a few minuses for this. I'll leave it at that today. I'm going to send this back to Leatherman, get a blade replacement. It's supposed to be free. As I say, I've sent 2 back in the past and they've been fine. If they think I've abused it, then I'll pay for it. I don't mind. I brought the final section of log from the down tree back with me, and I'm going to finish this video off by playing with a big knife. I've got my Falconer Modern Bowie and I'm just going to clean this up with it. It's a beast of a tool. I do like this thing. I was planning on doing a bit more with it, but I didn't. It'll come out again. Well, that's another one come to an end. I won't bother saying any more about the Leatherman. The fire sort of worked. And I love playing with big knives. The Modern Bowie's a cracker. I do like that. Right, until the next time, thumbs up is always appreciated. And I'll be seeing you. Ta-ra! As soon as I turned the camera off to go and put the kettle on, a fair bit of it fell on the floor. But it's okay because the majority of it... Start that again. Oh, for fuck's sake. My cheap crappy wire broke. I twisted it too tight and it broke, so I gotta add a piece in. And I watched with great something or fucking other. Start that again. I think I even start again. Yeah, so that's the end of that then. I don't know what I'm saying, I just don't. I better cut this and perhaps put it on the end so you can have a bit of a laugh at my expense. One more thing I'd like to add. Muiltitool or lock-in Swiss Army knife? This is the question. I wonder if any of you have been thinking this. Well, basically, the way I look at it is, am I going to need a pliers where I go? If I'm not going to need a pliers, then it's definitely the lock-in Swiss Army knife. Nice longer blade for cooking purposes. This is why I do favour my black handled one with a part serrated blade because it's great for cooking. I have mentioned this before. For cutting bread, it's a dream, whereas the non-serrated one isn't so good for cutting bread. Felix Imler did a video comparing the two blades the other day, and he basically came to the conclusion that there wasn't much difference in them anyway. Now, the last couple of trips, canoe trips I've done, I've asked the boys, is anybody taking a Leatherman? And the usual answer is yes, at least one is. So then I think to myself, well, if you're taking one, I don't need to take one. I don't need the pliers. We're together all the time. If pliers is needed, the other fella, I think it's usually Russ, has got one. So I will choose my Swiss Army knife over the Leatherman. But if I was going somewhere on my own, or he wasn't taking one, I'd definitely opt for a Leatherman / a Muiltitool, whatever I had at the time. Yeah, so that's my thoughts on that. I'd put a Leatherman / Muiltitool before a small Swiss Army knife any day. To me, they are just something you keep in your pack for a day hike or in your pocket as your EDC. They're great, don't get me wrong. I can light a fire with one just fine, and they're a good piece of kit. But the blades are small and they don't lock. That's my thoughts on that. If you don't mind carrying it, carry both. Why the hell not? I've actually stopped carrying a folding knife, a lock knife, and I've got quite a few. I've got a Spyderco paramilitary. I've got 2 Sebenzas. I've got a few others, Opinels and things, but I just don't use them. I prefer to use a Swiss Army knife because it's got multiple uses. Yeah, I do like the locksmith. That's a cracking knife, but blade, I prefer that serrated blade. And something funny that happened to me yesterday, you probably watched a previous video where I used the fire ant. Well, when I placed that order, I also bought some of the Helix tinders to put in the corkscrew for use with the Firefly. Well, I went to put them in, didn't I? And most of my Swiss Army knives, apart from the Ranger wood and my orange handled modified one, I've all got a screwdriver instead of a corkscrew, so I couldn't put them in. So that was a bit stupid of me. I can't say I've ever used the Phillips driver on them tools, so I would probably rather have the corkscrew. Not that I'm a wine drinker, but I'd rather fill it full of Helix tinder. There we are. So that's my thoughts on that, if anybody was interested. For my pals at the end, yes, let's face it, there's no substitute for a good utility knife. There just isn't. As much as I like Leatherman tools and multi-tools in general, although Leathermans are my preferred because that's what I spend my money on, there's just no substitute. And I honestly think if I was in a survival situation, I'd want both. Simple as that. When you watch Alone, and I've watched it for years, and I think to myself, I'd definitely have a multi-tool. I definitely would. But now that's put me off that one. So who knows, the search continues for the perfect multi-tool. I did think it was the charge, but the charge is sadly lacking an awl. It really needs an awl, and it needs a better scissors. Back to the drawing board. I'm going to send this one away tomorrow and get another one back. What do you say? Not a lot. I know some of you are going to think I'm a complete idiot, but that battening was very light. That was hardly anything. I think if I'd have put that into a piece of wood and perhaps, struggled to get it out, it could have gone then. I think there is definitely a design flaw there. Right, well, I'm off now, and I'm going to the cinema this afternoon. Me and the wife are going to watch Shang-Chi and his 10 Rings. Right, ta-ra.